everyone, and welcome back to another episode of the ACCN podcast. I'm your host, Shivani.
And I'm Cassandra.
And today we are joined by Sarah. So Sarah, over to you.
Hi, everyone. My name is Sarah Kanda. I work at the Global Energy Alliance, People and Planet, and I am absolutely excited to be here with these lovely ladies.
Awesome. So Sarah, maybe you can give us an introduction to the Global Energy Alliance for People and Planet, GEAPP, and the work you're doing in Africa and beyond around renewable energy.
Got it. Yes. So the Global Energy Alliance for People and Planet, it can be a mouthful, which is why we just stick to GEAPP, is an organization that was formed about 2 years ago, and we were launched at COP26. And with that launch, we set ourselves these big ambitious targets that we are really trying to achieve because we recognize that while renewable energy is a growing sector, there's a lot that's been happening, we've made a lot of gains, the pace is still very slow. So GEAPP was formed really to sort of bridge that gap with energy access, to get more people, especially those people who don't have access to renewable energy at all really, or those who have access to renewable energy, but it's not as reliable, to have the same, I guess, rights and privileges that other people in other parts of the world who have the privilege of having your lights on or your appliances turned on with power at any point you want, So it's not a right that is just for a few. We want it to be everyone else who's left out of that being able to experience it. So when we were formed, we had these 3 big targets, which are carbon reduction, I think about 4 million metric tons of carbon reduction. We are also aiming to improve about 150 million livelihoods and increase access to about a billion people over the next 10 years. So it's a tall order, and we realize we can't also do it alone, which is why we have the A in GEAPP, which is Alliance, and we come together with different DFIs, MDBs, and DFIs here. I might get a bit technical, but I'm learning not to get too technical with the terms because sometimes we get caught up in our own little world in the renewable energy sector. So DFIs here represent the development finance institutions, and MDBs here, the multilateral development banks, the World Banks, the AFDBs, so the guys who are actually funding renewable energy. So we partnered with them, with other alliance partners, to leverage each other's efforts because we realize we are all doing something bit by bit here and there, funding projects here and there. So how about we coordinate and bring it all together into one and see if we can have deeper impact and more sustained impact. So really that's just of, I guess, what GEAPP is. So there's a lot more we do specifically around 3 things. So one of the main things that we do, which is energy access, bridging the energy access gap, is around scaling mini grids. Now, mini grids, for those who do not know, is when you have the national grid, and I'll use Kenya as an example because that's the best example I have. So we have Kenya Power, who provide power to everyone, right? And then we have people, say, in remote parts of Kenya who don't have access to Kenya Power. So we set up a small mini grid where you generate power locally, where guys can use the power locally. It could be connected to the national grid with Kenya Power, or it could be used with power. The power could be used just locally. So that's what a mini grid means. So we focus a lot on mini grids because we realize that grids will not be able to reach as many people as we want. They cannot afford it. It's not sustainable. So we need that bridge in between, and mini grids provide that solution for people in remote places. The other thing we also focus on is what we call rooftop solar. So you have a small machine that needs to be powered. You power it using rooftop solar or just solar panels on a roof pretty much. Or factories, for example, or let's say factories that need electricity that's sustainable. Again, you power them with solar. The other one is what we call the BEST of BEST, another acronym I'm throwing in there. And BEST here just pretty much means battery energy storage systems.
Oh.
So, yeah, there you go. Learned a new word today. You're welcome. So, and for BEST, really for us, it's the continuation of making renewable energy a solution, because sometimes renewable energy can be what we call intermittent. So when you need power the most, it's not there. Sun only shines between morning and evening. And most countries tend to use power around the time when the sun has stopped shining. That's when you're home, you're powering up your appliances. So there's no sun shining. Sometimes the wind doesn't always blow. So what do? You need a battery to store this energy, so you're able to tap into that energy whenever you need it. Yeah. Or when you have a blackout, which we've been having a lot in Kenya. If you're Kenyan, is you need backup. So this is like a massive battery at KPLC level, in a power level that is installed and tied into the grid. So when there's no electricity, you can tap into that. So it's another way for us to reduce that risk of renewable energy that guys always think that, it's not always there when you need it. So battery energy storage tackles that challenge, gives you that solution. And the last one, which is what I do with our team, is what we call another acronym, wait for it, productive use of energy, PUE, which is essentially what we call growing economies, right? So it's not always automatic that when you provide electricity in a community or in a place that people will automatically take it up. It doesn't happen like that. So what we do is we ensure that we're bringing around the different aspects, the different ingredients to make sure that people are using the power, not just for lighting, because that doesn't help you, I guess, generate revenues or economically empower yourself. So we want you to be empowered economically through the use of, say, machines, for example. If a farmer is able to use a machine for processing, instead of just selling the product off the market, they can process the product and sell a value-added product, One, it improves their efficiency, improves their productivity, and gives them an opportunity to earn an income. Yeah. That's really what we do with the PUE work. It's getting the right equipment, if it's machines needed, if it's getting the right information to the people, if that's what they need, if it's financing, because these machines don't come cheap. We help them access the financing that they need to purchase these appliances and how to use them and how to run a business. Again, we take it for granted that everyone knows how to run a business. If you've never run a business before, you don't know what to do, So we also do the capacity building to help teach you how to run a business if you've never done it before.
Yeah.
So I think that's it in a nutshell. But yeah, GEAPP does a lot of work in a lot of sectors, but for the most part, our sectors are scaling the mini grids, the battery energy storage, and then what we call the green economies, which is energizing parts of the economy that typically have not been energized, which is mostly farming, since farming tends to be the biggest part of African economies.
Yeah. Wow. Okay, I've learned, and I've been working with you, so I'm like, I guess this is why these conversations are important, because you learn something every day, right?
Yes, you do.
Curious. I know sometimes you go rogue with extra questions depending on where the conversation is going. But how did you find yourself? At GEAPP? Like, what was your career path? And then you ended up there. Was that intentional?
I wouldn't say my career has been intentional, to be honest. I think I attribute it to two things. So one is God's grace and the Kenyan government. I mean, if you've done the KCSE, you know that before you do the KCSE, the national exam in Kenya, you have to select a bunch of courses that you think you're going to do. So I wasn't those kids who are cool enough to know exactly what you want to do when you grow up. I did not know exactly what I want to do when I grew up. So all I knew is that I wanted to help people. So I thought, hey, maybe nursing is where it is. So I applied for nursing, and the government decided,
not you.
Not you. So they decided that I'm going to take a course in Kenyatta University called Environmental Studies, Resource Conservation. I know. I knew nothing about it, but I said, you know what? I don't know what I want to do. I might as well just do this. Thank you to God and the government. So I joined KU, 4 years on, graduated, and then got my first job. Did a bit of, it was around research advocacy around renewable energy. Still, it didn't really click because a lot of research, a lot of case studies, mostly based in Kenya, doesn't get beyond that. And it was a very new topic back then. About 10, 15 years ago? Yeah, about 10 years ago, thereabout. So it wasn't as big a topic as it is right now. That was about a year. Then I joined another company where I did work around carbon asset development, which is carbon credits, pretty much. Developing carbon credits for companies that were back then selling water filters and clean cook stoves, kind of what is still happening today. Then along that time, the market crashed because it used to rely on something called CDM, Clean Development Mechanism, that was based on a Kyoto Protocol. I will not delve into that because I also didn't understand much about it, but the market crashed pretty much. It was called a mandatory sort of market, but now it also brought in the onset of voluntary carbon markets. But by then I'd kind of already left it, and I thought maybe there was no more work here, so let's try something different. So I got into a company where I got to work on renewable energy projects, but grid tied. Okay. So you're talking about projects where you're installing a small hydro in Kenya and you're selling the power to the government. So we did a lot of project development around that, do the feasibility studies for hydro, for wind, whatever it is, negotiate PPAs, all the way to financial closure and all that good stuff. So I think bit by bit, it's been small bits of introduction into the renewable energy sector. So I moved to another company now where I worked completely on off-grid, what we're calling the mini-grids, off-grid, where the power is now sold and used within the community and not sold to the government, which is a whole different ball game. And yeah, I think I've also done a bit of rural electrification. So I think I like to call myself maybe a generalist and not maybe a specialist because I've dabbled on a bunch of things in the renewable energy sector, which is a good thing, I guess. Call them transferable skills. So I'd say it wasn't intentional to the part where even I'm in GEAPP. I think it's just all the things I've done in the different jobs over the past slightly over a decade in my career that have gotten me to this point now where I still learn a lot of new things in GEAPP. I still have to do a lot of new things that I never did before. But I'm like, you know what, I've done this before. I've started from scratch, still in the same sector, but doing different things. And it worked out. So let's see what GEAPP has to bring in store. So twende tukiendanga, which is English for let's just keep moving.
Let's just keep going. No, you've said two of my favorite words, honestly, when it comes to conversations around careers and when we're speaking to young professionals. One, transferable skills, which I think everybody definitely has and can develop if you feel like you don't have them. Because even as we're talking about climate as an emerging sector, you just said it, 10 years ago, it wasn't being talked about as much. And now everybody's talking about it. We just had a conversation around education systems and how they're catching up but aren't quite there. And so what do? We have guys who've been skilled with very important skills that can be transferred into the sector and they can learn on the job. The other thing you've mentioned is the generalist aspect, where even through the work that we've been doing at Shortlist, it's really important for people to know that you don't have to be a specialist in one particular area. I mean, it's great if you are. True. But it's also great to have a bit of everything so that you can easily move your fluid and can learn, which I find to be really important in general. So great to capture that with your journey. And great to know a bit more about how you ended up here. I didn't realize.
Just my chance sometimes.
You could have been a nurse.
I could have been a nurse somewhere.
That's interesting.
I mean, you're still helping people one way or another.
Right? So it's a win-win.
Yeah, it's a win-win.
It's a win-win.
I'm curious. So you've been in this sector, let's say the climate sector, for the last 10 years.
Yeah.
So I'm sure you've seen it grow and develop. I'm curious, is it growing at the pace that we need it to grow, or are we like hopeful that that this sector will solve a problem or at least mitigate a problem that we are facing?
I mean, personally, and I think, to be honest, I don't know. It's like sometimes you feel like you're making gains and other times you feel like you're not. Because on the one front, for example, you go to internally as a country, you're trying to do your best, or let's say as an organization, you're trying to do your best to move the needle around climate change and renewable energy. And you go to these big conferences, say like COP, where you're hoping that some of the ideas you guys have in your offices and what you guys are doing are going to be discussed. And it's the same conversations really that they have in COP. There's not really much about maybe, say, reducing the amount of fossil fuels. It's just, we're going to fund more renewable energy projects. But to be honest, I think, yes, there are gains being made, but it's a bit slow because at the same time, the effects of climate change are being felt, they're being felt, I guess, faster and bigger, even more than the pace is actually catching up to get renewable energy. But I do understand that, yes, with renewable energy, as with any change, it takes time for people to really, I guess, build confidence around new technologies and a new way of doing things, reducing, I guess, your emissions, turning from this kind of fuel to another. So it takes time. I just don't think that we have that kind of luxury of time. I mean, we just came off of terrible floods in Kenya, and the same thing is hitting Brazil and South America. And to be honest, we can't say that climate did not have a place in some of these things that we're seeing. We can't just say that these things happen every 5 years, it's going to happen. No, they did happen, but were not as extreme as they are right now. Yeah. So we do attribute it to climate change. So I would say, yes, there are some gains, but it still can't catch up with the kind of pollution, I guess, the wastage that is still there. So we still need to do something. Yes, everyone is doing bits and pieces here and there, but it has to be bigger and I guess more deep, not just the breadth, but more deeper and more sustained impact. But I think we're getting there. Just we need to do a bit more. I think, first of all, we need a bit more funding. There's a lot of funding that is said goes to renewable energy, but not much of that trickles back to Africa the way we want it to, because Africa is a whole different ball game. So the solutions that we will need to work for us are not maybe what worked in the West, maybe, 100 years ago when they got electricity. So we're organized different, we are different people. So we might need new solutions. And these new solutions are risky, and not everyone is willing to fund them. Others see them as too risky and attractive. So we need to, I guess, take a stand and decide, you know what, just throw in a bunch of money. I know that's not how the world works.
Yeah,
I know. We live in a realist world. So, but if we could just throw a bunch of money and see what sticks in Africa, even if there are many other challenges around governments and whatnot, but just throw some more money at it and try different things and not just get caught up in what worked for the West and try to give the same template for what is going to work for Africa, because it won't.
Yeah, I agree fully. There's always this contentious discussion around Africa hasn't really had the opportunity to industrialize in the same way that the West did, right? And so they've been through, coal, steel industries, all of it, and been able to generate quite affordable electricity. And then all this crisis is happening now, and fair enough, there needs to be a change. But Africa is rising, or, lack of a better term, when it comes to putting in our infrastructure in place, how we generate power. And we have abundant resources, both in, renewable sources of power, but also in fossil, I believe. And so on one hand, we are talking about not leveraging fossil fuel because it's not good for the globe.
Yeah.
But at the other hand, are we in a place where we can only leverage renewable energy exclusively?
Yeah.
It's like...
There's always that big argument for you guys didn't use renewable energy to grow in your economies, but the expectation is that
we will.
We should.
And if we should and can, then we need substantial investment to enable that to happen sooner than later. And so segue into a really good question is GEAPP is, at the forefront of funding when it comes to renewable energy. Curious, you've mentioned several areas that you work on, but what are some of the major projects maybe that you're funding in Africa that could be turning or moving the needle just a bit?
Okay. So I'll mention there's one in DRC, it's called Nuru. It's a mini grid. I do not know the capacity, but I can always share after this. But there's Nuru that we funded that's actually it's a metro grid. I think it's going to be really big, and DRC is a big opportunity, a big market that is highly untapped. So of course we're excited about DRC and the opportunity that we can grow economies in DRC. So beyond just doing the mini grid project with Nuru in DRC, which is co-funded by other, of course, funders, not purely by GEAPP, we also excited about what we could do around the productive use of energy work. So it's stimulating demand. As I mentioned earlier, that it's not always automatic that when you give electricity in a place, economies just thrive.
Yeah.
They don't. You need to put in the work, the right kind of resources, the right kind of machinery infrastructure to make it all work. So we're excited, about Nuru, that's one, and what we could do on the demand side for Nuru. I think another one that we're excited about is the EAP program. Again, another acronym, but it stands for Energizing Agriculture Program. It's in Nigeria. And that one is exciting because we've brought different partners, kind of like everyone you need to make it work. You have the government in there, that is the REA, the Renewable Energy Association of Nigeria. We also have private players who are mini-grid developers who are developing mini-grids and are looking to increase demand on their side, start a couple of businesses on their side so we can stimulate demand, right, for their mini-grids. We've also brought a company called Rocky Mountain Institute. It's an American organization that's doing the implementing, really bringing all these stakeholders together to implement the program. We also have companies that are buying of the product, so what you call like the market linkage aspect of it, companies that are selling the machines, the PE companies, the fabricators, the distributors. So it's brought everyone together who needs to be in the mix. And then GEAPP is bringing in the financing for people to be able to access these machines, to be trained on how to use these machines and whatnot. So this for us is like a way of testing out what kind of model works best when you're trying to get new machines to grow new economies in a community. What is it that you need? So it's a nice testing ground for us, and Nigeria is always a huge market for testing out productive use of energy appliances. So that's an exciting one for us to see just what kind of innovative mechanisms and models can come out of this. So we're focusing on a couple of value chains. So we're focusing on rice, focusing on rice milling, cold storage, there's oil palm pressing, there's electric mobility, and converting old diesel generators to electric. So in all this, of course, the models, the way you try to implement it is going to be very different. But it provides us an opportunity to understand how with each of these value chains, what works best. So how it works is you have the mini-grid developers providing the electricity, right? Then you partner you with a productive use company that's providing the machines. They provide the machines to the community who get to use the power from the mini-grid. So he's also benefiting, the mini-grid developer. And the PE company providing the machines is also benefiting because they're selling their appliances to these people. Then you have REA and the RMIs who come together to just support the community and make it all work. Like, what do you need? What kind of training do you need? They get the data that really helps us analyze and see what is working, because you need data. Like, data is a new currency. You need to understand what's working, what's not, and then adjust as you go along. Then you have others who do the market linkage part of it, where you get the processed product and you sell it to the market. So it's like a whole chain from beginning to the end, So, and that's really how we like to work in GEAPP, specifically within the demand, jobs, and livelihoods team. It's covering that entire chain, although we don't do it alone. So we'll focus specifically on energizing the value chain, providing the appliances, getting the electricity to power the appliance. And then now we work with the different partners around the market linkage, who's going to take up the product after it's processed, who's going to do the training, the capacity building, who's going to provide the financing. So it's, again, collaboration, coordination is the name of the game for GEAPP. Yeah, because you can't do it alone. Yeah.
Okay.
That's very cool.
And is there a minimum size of project you take on, especially for productive use? Because I know there's a lot of innovation happening across different countries in Africa. And a lot of times financing is the gap. Banks need collateral. These guys starting out don't have collateral or have limited access to it. And they may have big ideas that potentially could change how things are run in a particular region or something like that. But at the same time, there has to be a certain amount of scale for a project to be viable for funding. At the same time, is there a ballpark size that you like to see for our innovative community?
Let me see. So how we work is we work on a country basis, right? I don't think we have really like a number per se. Because as I mentioned, for us, it's always about partnerships. So we'll do what we know we can do, and then we'll bring in other partners to make it work. For example, if it's testing out innovations, for example, but we do that a lot. So what we will do, for example, is, and that's really the goal of GEAPP's money. Our money is not expensive. It's not like debt or anything, although it does morph into whatever is required. So what we like to call our money is agile. So it just morphs into whatever is required at that point. So if it's a grant that's needed to test out stuff, because that's what you need. You need a grant to de-risk some of these innovations, because no one, as you mentioned, is going to be funding some of these innovations, right? So a grant helps you have an early space where you can go free and just test out and see what works, right? And then you get it to a point where now maybe, like, say, private sector can take it up. Maybe it can get equity, or it can start getting debt. But you will still need, as you said, that cheap, affordable capital to test out some of these innovations, because private sector is not going to get in there. And even impact investors, while they say it's impact, don't always start at early stage. They want somebody else to de-risk it, make it proven, and then now we'll take it up. So I wouldn't say we have a size per se. It's just that we believe that if we have to do something around innovation, again, we'll have to partner with other people to make it work, so that you're not just doing the proving early stage and then just dropping it like a hot cake. It's who is going to take it up down the value chain. Yeah.
So do you have calls for applications to get these innovators in, so that you can figure out which partnerships may make sense, which ideas may be good to explore, or is it through these partnerships that you're exposed to people innovating and are able to tap in at that point?
No, we do. So, for example, if we are designing a program, so we'll decide what are we trying to get out of this. So, for example, if you're trying to get solutions and like jumpstart the market with some innovation, so we will design the program, and then, yes, we'll do a call for proposal. So it really just depends on, I guess, the financing that's available and who we want to partner with. So, of course, we're not limited on our own by thinking that, we have to do everything.
Yeah.
So we'll see, for example, like say with Mastercard Foundation, we'll say that we want to do this, we want to bring in this is what we are good at, this is what you guys are good at, bring in the financing, and let's see what we can do. So one of the programs we have that's doing exactly that is in India. It's called Entice, and it's for youth. And they're doing the exact thing where they are providing grants to young innovators in India to come up with different solutions around climate change. Okay. So entrepreneurs. So that's one. And I'm not sure if we're going to do a similar one in Africa. I don't know.
You preempted my question. I was like, where's Entice A?
Yeah. We don't have it yet. I think we want to see how it lands in India and how it works. And once it's ready, I think we were actually thinking about doing it in Africa, to be honest. We just need first get some data, collect some evidence from India and see how it works, and then bring a similar one here. However, we do have another one that we are also about to launch at when, and it's with ACCN, hardest to reach. And it's going to be the same thing, really. It's supporting entrepreneurs in that early stage, proof your product, your services, whatever it is you're offering, then get it to the next stage. So
got it.
The role of grant is really to de-risk that early stage when you're testing things out that nobody else wants to fund, and that's where GEAPP comes in. And then the goal for us is, again, not just leave it at that, it's have other partners ready, like ACCN, ready to absorb the early stage. There's innovative proof of concepts that are going through the chain. So it's not just doing it, they've proven it, but then there's no capital to actually go to the next stage to scale it. So I think there's one with ACCN coming up. There's the one in India, Entice, and I'm not sure of any other. But for this year, I don't think we're doing anything else besides that.
Okay.
But we do those kind of programs.
Okay.
So they're to launch. So it's launching. I mean, it's supporting existing innovations, or like the one in India. Like, does it support existing innovations, or like people that have like ideas and like, how does that work?
I really don't know whether it's people. I think it's people with existing ideas. Okay. It's not from scratch. Okay. So it's you have an idea. They've submitted the proposals, you are selected, and you got in because your idea was seen as being valuable, viable.
Yeah.
So it's submit the ideas, it's accepted, then you go in through. It's like a venture building, pretty much. Yeah. So they help you strengthen it. I mean, you know all about venture building. You are in the IT sector, so
the tech space.
The tech space,
yes,
all about venture building. Yeah, it's that kind of environment.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's really needed to spur on innovation. I think. There's so many different ways of addressing all these challenges we're seeing in climate. True. And the more we speak to people, the more you discover that there's so many ideas. So many. I wish there was like one place that all these ideas could live, and people could fund them, and everyone would have an opportunity to try. But I guess this is why we also try to bring together conversations like these to inspire, but also to help people figure out where to go as they work on the ideas or as they look for opportunities, because maybe they want to be employed rather than be innovators, which is fine. True. You need both for this to work.
Yeah. That's true.
Yeah.
Wow. But I mean, overall, I guess like what GEAPP is doing is like, it's cool that you're supporting innovations, but then also when you mentioned you're working like end to end, that's like also supporting so many climate jobs across the board. And so I guess it's nice to have donors and funders, that are in the impact space, but then working end to end within particular sectors to like drive employment, drive innovation, and to support communities on ground. So I think that's very cool.
Yeah, I know. I think it's a big mandate for us, actually. I don't even think I've mentioned it, is that creation of jobs. That's the J in my title, demand jobs and livelihoods.
Yeah.
And I mean, it's a tricky space because I think, first of all, we haven't even decided what we define green jobs as. I think it's always a back and forth. So what is a green job, you know? So it's finding out. So it's trying to understand, really, is there enough data to let you know how the future looks like in terms of green jobs, which is what we're really trying to do. You know, if you're going to understand how you're going to be creating those jobs in the future, you need to know where the opportunities are. You know, not just in the future. We need some of those jobs now. For example, in South Africa, where we're doing the coal decommissioning, what happens to people who are working in those coal plants? You know, and not just those who are employed within the coal plants. There are livelihoods that were set up around people working in the coal plants, whole communities. You know? So what happens? You know, we talk about upskilling, we talk about reskilling, and trying to shift them to renewable energy sector, you know, but is that enough? You know, that's now. But what else do we need to do? What does it take to create that job? You know, how much is creating a job in the renewable energy sector? So, that's a big mandate for us that we're still trying to figure out, I guess, how it's all going to work. But most importantly, which even you guys know, is you need data for you to be able to plan for that future. Yeah. So if you guys have access to that data, I'll shortlist you guys to the placement. You're really working on it. I know Paul has mentioned it as well. We don't have the data.
Yeah, we need it. We need to be able to project where these jobs are coming from, what these jobs are. Because so far, I think it's been reactive across the continent, right? It's like, okay, solar's coming in, whoever can distribute home systems, fantastic. Yes. But I think if you walk back down the value chain to manufacturing, that's where job creation is, you know.
It's true, the big numbers in large scale.
Exactly, because sales is going to take you so far in terms of number of jobs created, collections, installation, and all of those are important. Yeah. But then if you really want to talk about changing communities and actually transitioning how people have been working into this renewable energy sector and climate at large, you have to start from the beginning, where people are manufacturing, people are innovating, and then move towards distribution or launch of the things they've been working on. And right now, I know a lot of the technology is being brought in, and then we're adapting, right? And there's a lot of conversation also. We were doing a research project on clean cooking, and we discovered in Ghana, the government is actually shifting policy so that a lot of the clean cooking tech
is done internally.
Manufactured in Ghana. Nice. Imagine the number of jobs that will be created as a result, and the skill sets that will come through, and innovation from being able to actually manufacture, find more effective ways, more efficient ways. So I think even as we encourage, job creation, it's also to encourage it to start from here. We do have a lot of resources, so how to tap into that, so we can continue to adapt the technology, make it more efficient from an African perspective, and then we'll see creation at scale. But we need the data.
That's true.
We need to know where this is coming from.
Data? I mean,
well, no promises, but we're working on it.
We'll be waiting.
Yeah.
I think it's a good first step as well, like getting the data and like seeing how to model it, and then from there, obviously, we'll continue to grow and further develop.
Yeah, and even as we plan on that data, I think starting from universities and customizing the education to meet the future skill needs. Because I don't think we're at the point right now where universities have really embraced some of the future jobs. I mean, some of the jobs we have now in the renewable energy sector. Yeah. Some of those skills, like I know the skills I have right now, I've learned on the job. I don't think many of these things I learned in university, to be honest. It was a completely different course. Maybe it was an introduction into climate and what it does and what it's all about. But the skills have been purely on the job.
Yeah.
So, I think we need to prepare universities to also adapt to that change, and also be places where you can, I don't use the word breed, but grow innovation. Sometimes there's that mismatch. So universities just churn out they usually get the education and then that's it. And then there's a gap between what universities are doing with research and then how it translates to innovation. Because there's a lot of research. I mean, if you've done a master's, you did a thesis, right?
Yeah.
That's innovation right there. But then it doesn't translate to, like, say, a startup. It just sticks as a report somewhere on a desk or wherever it is, and that's it. There are many ideas that are stuck in paper that could be innovations, but then there's that bridge. Like, how do you bridge that gap between when you leave university, you do your thesis, your PhD, and everything, that research, and turning it into innovation that can be used for a startup.
Yeah.
So, but I know guys like Mawazo are on that.
Exactly. So. I was just about to say, actually, Mawazo is trying to bridge that gap.
Yes.
But it is, I think, a huge addressable point of moving innovation into mainstream solutions.
True.
For the stuff we're seeing today.
Yeah, but I think KU have the Manu Chandaria incubator, which does that. So I think it's a good place to start.
Yeah. Okay.
Start. Yeah.
Good. That preluded a question I was going to ask around where can people find out more about how to grow their ideas or learn more about the space. You said you've learned on the job, so have we. And we've talked to other people who mention, seeking out free courses online, or if you can, figure out resources, then also intentionally finding courses that speak to what you want to do. But is there anything else you can point people at that might be helpful in their journey today, young professionals looking to pivot into the space?
Yeah, so there's on the job, there's the online courses. I'm trying to think of anything else that I have done. I think it's learning from peers, to be honest, as well. Yeah. Being in spaces that people are talking about things that I would want to learn more about. So it could be webinars. I jump on webinars, even if it's not part of my job. I jump on a webinar that's talking about AI, just to see what AI is about. So I think it's put yourself in spaces that maybe typically you wouldn't think of being in. And being an introvert, I know it's not always a thing for me, but networking as well.
Yeah.
It's daunting, but you do learn a lot. If you find that one person in a networking event that you can kind of cling on to and they become your...
Yeah, you've been my person.
I know, we've been each other's persons at events, but I know networking events are also spaces where you get to meet people and learn a lot, So I think it's attend webinars, register, and they are all over the places. LinkedIn, where else do guys access webinars? I don't know, but
it's honestly available, and part of what we're trying to do is provide information about where to find these things. So we're always harvesting from the people we talk to. Where did you learn from? To create a sort of resource repository to point ACCN to, just to make it a bit easier, because there's also so much out there, and so finding the good stuff that's actually helpful. Tips on how to approach people to talk, because networking is also a big part of
it's a whole skill on its own.
We plan to address networking in one of our future conversations as well, because it is quite the hurdle, but it honestly is so helpful. And other ways that we can help people kind of get out of their comfort zones as they seek out this journey in their careers.
I would say, though, another thing that has helped is signing up for newsletters. You see these organizations like the Gates Foundation, RMI, they all have these newsletters that they send to your email every week or so, and they have information about what they're doing. I've learned a lot from those kind of newsletters. When you join an event, they ask you, do you want to receive our newsletter? Nobody ever clicks that box because they're like, it's too much in my email. Well, I did click, and it's interesting. I mean, the ones that they click and are not relevant, you can always cancel. For the most part, I've signed up to many of those newsletters that it's information that maybe is just customized and even starts with your name. Hi, Sarah. Today, the Gates Foundation did this and this. So I think that's another place, another avenue that I've actually absorbed a lot of information. The newsletters and blogs from companies. I know GEAPP puts out a lot of blogs and case studies on different things. See, I'll come to your site. Also, Paul actually does a lot of newsletters. He does. And I read them as well. You see? So I think that's another way of absorbing, getting more information. Sign up for newsletters. Check
actually, the Shortlist Futures has a newsletter that we use to share a lot about what we're doing on ACCN. And there was something else. I've forgotten. My train of thought just disappeared with the newsletters. But it's a really important resource. I hope I remember. I'll throw it in when I do.
Link in bio.
Yeah. It was joining communities, actually, where you can meet people who are interested in the same things. So whether it's a professional community like ACCN or LinkedIn or
LinkedIn
anywhere else, right?
Yes.
There's also very active local networks like Nairobi Climate Network. And I'm sure there are others like it, where there's a lot of relevant information being shared about the space, opportunities, call for action, when things are happening. Like I remember NCN recently did something around a carbon market paper or research that they were doing, and it was shared with the community. So I think seeking out and joining such communities is also a quicker way to meet more people in the space and learn a bit more.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
100% agree.
Yeah, but it's just exciting. It's just, I think, for people just to explore and take the time, like maybe like 5-10 minutes a day if that's what you're interested in, and just see what's out there. Learn, take the initiative, and then obviously policies need to be changing, university education needs to be adapting, but as an individual, taking that step yourself.
Yeah, true. I think what I've always done is, before I check my emails, I put in like 30 minutes, just go on LinkedIn and look at an article. So it helps, but it has to also be intentional. On the part of whoever wants to get into the sector, it has to be really intentional. As much as it looks like some of these things, like our careers happen by chance, it's a lot of hard work.
There's
that goes
some
in
intention
the
that goes in.
Yeah.
It's true.
A lot of intentionality that goes into planning it out. As to how the next 10 years, I don't know how they look like, but right now we're in GEAPP and that's what we're focusing on.
And true. Thank you. I don't know if you have any last words for our young professionals.
Let me see. I think I would say, this is something I would tell myself based on how my career has panned out right now. It's just keep trying. Even if you have tried different things and fail, throw something until it sticks. Something will stick eventually, I'm not sure if renewable energy has stuck right now, but this is where I am right now, and that's what I'm focusing on. But don't be afraid to try out different things because you think, it's too hard. I think for a long time, I always thought that maybe I'm not qualified enough because I don't end with engineer, or my titles don't begin with engineer, Sarah, at the beginning. And renewable energy looks like it's very technical. And I'm not. I said, I have doubled up in different things in the renewable energy sector. So I think don't be afraid about trying the different things and seeing what will stick. You could try with carbon asset development. It didn't work for me. That's fine. You move on, try something else. I've been a project manager most of my career, but it's in different things, So it's just keep trying. Don't give up. At some point, it's going to stick. I was about to say I'm 30. Okay, fine, I am 35. And I'm still figuring stuff out. There's never an age where you get and you're like, oh my gosh, I have it figured out. This is my calling. This is what. And it's good if you have that calling and you feel this is your space. For some of us, this is where I'm at right now. This is the focus for now. As for the future, I guess we'll twende tukiendanga, which is English for keep it moving. So
I feel like that should be the title for this episode.
I just keep it moving. Don't stall. Just start.
It
will land.
Yeah. That's really good advice. Thank you for sharing.
You're welcome. I hope it helps someone. It's helped me.
It
helps someone.
Well, if it's any comfort, you're still youth according to Kenya.
Thank you. Only for a couple more months.
Still solidly speaking to your peers. We appreciate you.
Only for a couple more months, but I'll take that.
Thank you.
Thank you guys for having me. This has been an absolute pleasure.
Thank you. Yeah, thank you for joining. Great. Yeah, thanks guys for joining into the ACCN podcast.